Wow, big happenings with the trucker protest in terms of their fundraiser that was going on GoFundMe. Never a good idea, which I think this is probably the most high-profile GoFundMe deplatforming that I can think of. This was the second biggest crowdfunding effort in Canadian history. It raised, I believe, around $10 million Canadian, close to $9 million US. So a lot of money for such a small country. Remember, I believe Canada is smaller than a few individual U.S. states. So it was a big deal they raised that much money. Now, the Canadian government, and the government of Ottawa in particular, was trying to seize these funds. They said they wanted to take away the GoFundMe money because they said, oh my gosh, all these damages that have been done to the city, we need punitive damages for the emotions that have been rocked, all the feelings which have been hurt by the loud horns blaring and the unacceptable beliefs that these people hold. But GoFundMe, you see, they came to a compromise. They said, you know what, no. We're not going to, maybe instead of shutting down the fundraiser and giving all the money to the government of Canada, how about we shut down the fundraiser and give all the money to proper left-wing causes? This $9 million US dollars that was donated by conservatives to help a conservative cause, let's just give it all and maybe buy women free abortions. Or maybe they'll spend the $9 million on legal fees for defending Black Lives Matter rioters, if any of them actually got prosecuted. Or maybe we'll spend it on bail the next time that the left riots and burns down our cities. That was what GoFundMe had in mind. Something that they somehow managed to find something that was even more insulting than giving the money to the Canadian government. It was purely just trying to spite all its users who wanted to donate to a conservative cause. You know what? Hey, all that money that you saved up and you said, I'm going to chip into a cause that I believe in. All that money that people donated so quickly over the course of a week, $9 million, let's just give it all to the left anyway. And so this rightly enraged a lot of people. There was obviously a lot of pushback to this from not just folks on Twitter, but real people who are public figures. DeSantis, the governor here in Florida, said that he would be having the Attorney General investigate them, and that this was total fraud. Which is true. I mean, you are defrauding these people. They thought they were donating to one cause, and then GoFundMe says, no, we're going to give your money to Black Lives Matter or Planned Parenthood or something of the sort, or maybe we'll just give it to a Trudeau's re-election campaign. Oh, but if you request a refund, maybe we'll give you your money back. But you have to request it and go through our process. Thankfully, they backtracked on this pretty quickly. And it's nice to see that how weak and spineless these folks can be when there's a little pushback against them. And finally, there is a Give, Send, Go campaign that's been set up, which is where this campaign should have been set up to begin with, which raised $1.1 million last night after GoFundMe shut down the campaign over there on their website. And so it should be a happy ending, right? Okay, people learned, okay, we can't give money on GoFundMe. We have to use Give, Send, Go. That's it, right? Nope. They just won't let it end there. They won't let these people raise their money. There is now an ongoing DDoS attack, directed denial of service, being waged against Give, Send, Go. You can't access the website. You enter it in, as of the recording of this, it goes nowhere. The site's down. Nobody can donate to them for any cause. And Give, Send, Go hosts, people who know they'd probably be shut down on GoFundMe because they're not woke enough. And so this just shows, where one of the holes is in, the alt-tech space. GoFundMe started shutting people down a few years ago, so people started Give, Send, Go, which was great. Give, Send, Go is a great website. You've also got, Subscribestar as an alternative to Patreon. These folks, they're great. But to my knowledge, there is no unwoke alt-tech competitor to Cloudflare. So all of these politically incorrect websites they're kind of flying blind without any DDoS protection. And those that do currently have DDoS protection are pretty much under the threat of losing it at any time if there's any sort of public, media attention giving to them. Essentially, if you have a situation like this, like Give, Send, Go picking up the slack where GoFundMe lets off, or is leaving these people hung out to dry. In this situation, if Give, Send, Go had Cloudflare protection, Cloudflare probably would drop them as a customer. The precedent was first set for this, I believe, the Daily Stormer was the first, or maybe it was Stormfront itself. Yeah, it might have been Stormfront, because Stormfront's been gone for a long time now, which is one of the oldest message boards on the internet. From what I recall, I believe Stormfront's had been around since like the 90s. Well, they lost their Cloudflare, dropped them because they said, you know what, I guess we can't be doing business with neo-Nazis anymore. Even though I don't know how many years Cloudflare in particular was doing. Probably, I would imagine that Stormfront had DDoS protection for as long as it's been available. It's an old website. And of course, they're at the fringe of the Overton window, or I shouldn't say they're nowhere near the Overton window. They're at the fringe of unacceptability. And so once the Overton window of DDoS protection started narrowing, everybody who was, it's now affecting everybody, I guess you could say, to the left. I don't like using that term in this case, but everybody who is considered less or more acceptable than the Daily Stormer or Stormfront, they're now fair game, especially since everyone's been labeled a neo-Nazi. Of course, we know this is a neo-Nazi convoy, so if they're going to deny services to the neo-Nazi forum, well, obviously they're going to deny neo-Nazis the ability to fundraise on the internet. Now, it's quite possible that, this DDoS attack could be perpetrated by the Canadian government themselves, because obviously the Canadian government wanted this fundraiser shut down. They were going through the court system to seize the money. GoFundMe shut it down, and another website picked it up. So, I could see the Canadian government, if they, Canada's kind of I think of them intelligence-wise as kind of a backward country. I don't think of them as the types of people who could really pull off coups in the way that the CIA does. But they probably have some intelligence agency that is capable of DDoS attacks that is very well might be behind shutting down Give, Send, Go, because they've got to be the number one culprit. They have the most motivation. They're the people who wanted the fundraiser shut down. Then all of a sudden somebody else starts up a new fundraiser and the website falls under a cyber attack. This certainly won't be blamed on Russian hackers, I'll tell you that. The CBC's not going to be going, oh, the trucker trucker fundraiser was shut down by a cyber attack. Must be Russia. No, in fact, you would think, well, gosh, if the Russians are behind the trucker protest, they should be doing something about this DDoS attack and helping Give, Send, Go get back up and running. Because this really is a huge loss to the right if Give, Send, Go it can be defeated this easily. And is not going to come back. Maybe they will. I hope they do. Hopefully this is temporary, which, DDoS attacks typically are. But, if they got big enough, there would be somebody who would be willing to fund doing it 24 hours a day. There's a lot of, basically every cause that is good that can't get onto GoFundMe uses Give, Send, Go. So anybody who's kind of on the wrong side of the aisle will lose all access to crowdfunding. And yes, obviously, if Give, Send, Go gets destroyed, somebody can start another website, but that's not the point. If Give, Send, Go can be brought down, so can any other website, unless there is somebody who's able to get around the Cloudflare problem. And there might be some competitors to Cloudflare. I'm not saying that there aren't. I'm using that as a catch-all for DDoS protection in Silicon Valley. Because, maybe there is some alt-tech equivalent that I don't know about that, for whatever reason, Give, Send, Go irresponsibly is not using. So correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but as far as I know, this is just something people have to deal with. Now, on the bright side, something that I heard last night on Viva Fry's stream, which you should all be watching his streams and his channel in general. He's a great guy up in Canada. He interviewed a trucker, and he told him about this right after GoFundMe shut it down. And the guy shook his head, and he said it doesn't matter. Because remember, the point of this GoFundMe was to fund the living expenses of all these people so that they could keep protesting as long as it took. Because that's what these people said. We want to stay here in Ottawa, or the people in Alberta, same thing. We want to stay here and camp out until our demands are met and all restrictions are lifted and Canada's free from coast to coast. That's what this movement's about. And the people donated money so that folks could stay there. And so they could live off of that money. And so they could buy food and whatever they need, water. Well, the guy that Viva interviewed, the trucker in Ottawa, who I believe was from Alberta, he said it doesn't matter that he took away the money. There's so much support for them just in that part of town where they're camped out in Ottawa. There's so many local people who are willing to help people who bring them food. He says they bring so much food every day we can't eat it all. Plenty of people offer, hey, if you need to use the bathroom, you can come to my house, blah, blah, blah. These people are being supported. Viva interviewed last night, surprisingly, a lot of people who are from Ottawa who were there. It wasn't all people from outside the city. Like if they held this kind of a protest in Washington, D.C., there would be 0 D.C. residents who would show up, let alone D.C. natives. 0 people who live in D.C. or near D.C., in the suburbs, would show up for a protest like this in support. And so these people are not totally isolated inside of the city, according to this trucker. And so even without the money, he said, we'll be just fine. We can stay here. That's at least what this guy was saying. And that gives me some hope. And that's despite what the Ottawa police said yesterday, which kind of, I heard the lawyers discussing it because Viva's a lawyer. He was talking to 2 other lawyers. It's not entirely clear, but it seems like what the Ottawa police is saying is that you might be criminally liable if you are, a local person in Ottawa and you give food or water to these people, because you might be considered, well, then you're aiding and abetting an insurrection. Or at least that's kind of what they're implying. They don't directly come out and say that. They just said, hey, we might criminally investigate you if you help these people. Ignore them, pretend they don't exist, or spit on them. But whatever you do, don't help them. It's similar to what the Mounties tried to do down in Couts on the border with Alberta and Montana. They were trying to deny food and water from entering the town. They wanted to do a medieval style siege to starve out the blockaders and just cut off the town. Eventually, the Mounties did relent on that, probably because there was so much attention being brought. It would look bad for them PR-wise. But I mean, it just shows they're getting part of what they want. Saskatchewan is confirmed. Saskatchewan's doing away with their mandates. The premier of Alberta, who had really dug in on the pro-mandate side, is he needs a few days to lick his wounds, but apparently he's within a few days going to come out and announce they're ending all restrictions. But it hasn't happened yet, so even if all you cared about was Alberta, you should stay dug in until he puts pen to paper and repeals these tyrannical executive orders. But then you've still got a whole ton of other provinces. You got British Columbia, you have Ontario, Quebec, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, Labrador, or I guess it's Newfoundland and Labrador. They're one province, I believe. And I'm probably missing a couple others. They're the territories up in the north. But I mean, of the major provinces, all the other ones, apparently, other than Saskatchewan and Alberta, will remain, locked down, vax passports, the whole 9 yards. Even conservative-controlled Ontario. Their premier, Doug Ford, whose brother, I believe, the mayor of Toronto, didn't he die of a cocaine overdose? He was morbidly obese, had a heart attack. Real sad story. He is so concerned with the health. This morbidly obese guy whose brother, whose morbidly obese brother died of a heart attack or something of the like, because he was taking too much drugs. He's so concerned about the health of other people and telling them what to do. No, you got to get your vaccines. As he wants to mandate vaccines for everyone. Just the picture of health, Doug Ford. And he said, hey, you truckers, you've made your point. Now go home. Go home. Like he's talking to a dog. And that's really how politicians look at you. They look at you as a bunch of dogs, cattle, tax cattle, animals that can be raised and that they can milk and bilk to enrich themselves. And so they don't want you to step out of line. They got to crack the whip. They got to start arresting those who aid and abet you so that you can be starved out. And so the fight is long from over in Canada, but I'm glad to see these people are so dedicated. They don't seem to be losing energy. This is the second weekend since they arrived in Ottawa. And I will continue to monitor the situation there and in Alberta. So with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.